The history of Veterans Day.
What is a veteran? A veteran can be defined as any person who served honorably on active duty in the armed forces of the United States. A person who is active duty is in the military full-time.
Branches of the U.S. military. There are currently 6 service branches of the U.S. Armed Forces: U.S. Air Force, U.S. Army, U.S. Coast Guard, U.S. Marine Corps, U.S. Navy, and U.S. Space Force.
The Air Force is part of the Department of Defense, DoD. It's responsible for aerial military operations, defending U.S. air bases and building landing strips. Its service members are airmen. The reserve components are Air National Guard and Air Force Reserve. The Army is part of DoD and is the largest of the military branches. It handles significant ground combat missions, especially operations that are ongoing. Army Special Forces are called Green Berets for their headgear. The Army's members are its soldiers. The reserve components are the Army Reserve and Army National Guard.
The Coast Guard is a part of the Department of Homeland Security, DHS. It provides national security and search and rescue for America's waterways, seas, and coast. It's responsible for stopping drug smugglers and others breaking maritime law. It enforces marine environmental protection laws. Service members are Coast Guardsmen and nicknamed Coasties. The reserve component is the Coast Guard Reserve. The Marine Corps is a part of the DoD. It provides land combat, sea-based, and air-ground operations, support for the other branches during a mission. This branch also guards the U.S. embassies around the world and the classified documents in those buildings. The Marine Corps Special Operations Command, MARSOC, members are known as Raiders. All service members are called Marines. The reserve component in the Marine Corps Reserve.
The Navy is part of the DoD. It protects waterways, sea, and ocean outside of the Coast Guard's jurisdiction. Navy warships provide the runways for aircraft to land and take off when at sea. Navy SEALs, sea, air, and land, are the special operations force for this branch. All service members are known as sailors. The reverse component is Navy Reserve. The Space Force is a new branch created in December 2019 from the former Air Force Space Command. The Space Force falls within the Department of the Air Force. It organizes, trains, and equips space forces to protect U.S. and allied interests in space and provide space capabilities to the Joint Force.
The history of Veterans Day. The history of Veterans Day can be traced back to the ending of World War I. At the time, World War I was known as the Great War. World War I officially ended with the signing of Treaty of Versailles, pictured on June 28, 1919. Fighting in World War I had stopped 7 months prior to the signing of the treaty when an armistice went into effect on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month, November 11, 1918. An armistice is an agreement made by opposing sides in a war to stop fighting for a certain time.
In November 1919, President Woodrow Wilson declared November 11th as the first commemoration of Armistice Day. Originally, the day was to be observed with parades, public meetings, and a brief suspension of business at 11 a.m.
On June 4, 1926, the United States Congress adopted a resolution asking President Calvin Coolidge to have officials display the flag on all public buildings on November 11th and to invite the people to observe the day in schools and churches with ceremonies. At the time, 27 states had already declared November 11th a legal holiday.
In 1938, a congressional act made November 11th a legal holiday throughout the country. The day was to be dedicated to the cause of world peace and was to be celebrated and known as Armistice Day.
Initially, Armistice Day was set aside to honor the veterans of World War I. In 1954, after World War II and the Korean War, the United States Congress amended the act passed in 1938 by replacing the word armistice with veterans. November 11th was now a day to honor all veterans.
Veterans Day. Veterans Day and Memorial Day are sometimes confused. Memorial Day is observed on the last Monday in May and honors Americans who died in service to their country. Veterans Day is also observed on November 11th and honors all American veterans living or dead. Veterans Day is observed on November 11th every year regardless of that day of that week it falls on. In 1968, Congress passed the Uniform Holiday Bill, which moved Veterans Day to the fourth Monday in October. The law went into effect in 1971, but Veterans Day would be moved back to November 11th in 1975.
Australia, Britain, Canada, and France also commemorate veterans on or near November 11th. In Europe, it is common to observe 2 minutes of silence at 11 a.m. every November 11th.
Today, there are approximately 19 million military veterans in the United States. Veterans Day continues to honor all American veterans, living or dead, for their patriotism and their willingness to serve and sacrifice during war or peacetime.
War memorials. The Tomb of the Unknown Soldier is one of the memorials inside of the Arlington National Cemetery in Fort Myer, Virginia. This moment honors and is the final resting place for unknowns, casualties of war that remained undefeated. Unknowns were added in 1921, 1958, and 1984.
The National Memorial Arch. This monument, located in Pennsylvania, was created to commemorate General George Washington and the Continental Army for their arrival at Valley Forge during the American Revolution. National World War II Memorial. It opened in 2004 and honors the millions who served in the armed forces during World War II, the 400,000 who gave their lives, and the millions of individuals who supported war efforts from home. National World War I Museum. The museum is located in Kansas City, Missouri. Construction on the monument was completed in 1926, and the Liberty Memorial was dedicated by President Calvin Coolidge.
Bridgeview staff's family members in the military. While Veterans Day is typically in honor of living veterans, A moment of silence is appropriate to also honor those who have given their lives. This may be followed by taps. Taps is a bugle call that is sounded as a signal for lights out at the end of a military day, during patriotic memorial ceremonies, and military funerals conducted by the United States Armed Forces. Here is a video of Mr. Kent, our elementary band director, playing taps. From all of the students and staff of District 109, thank you for your service.